Hey, Mr. Chang here. Welcome to the 3D Modeling Challenge. Excited that you're doing this. This video is going to help you get started, teach you some new concepts that you will need to construct a three-dimensional box using linear equations in Desmos, okay? While we're doing this video, my head is going to be turned a lot to the screen that I'm sharing, so I apologize for not looking you in the eye and keeping that level of interaction, but I'm sure you won't mind. Anyways, welcome to the 3D Modeling Challenge. Your job is to use your knowledge of horizontal lines, vertical lines, parallel lines to draw a three-dimensional box in Desmos. And so you're going to type out the linear equations to make these lines on a coordinate plane. But you're going to do it so precisely that it's going to create this beautiful three-dimensional box, just like the one that you see here, that has the 3D effect, right? When you do those little dotted lines, it creates a three-dimensional looking object on a two-dimensional coordinate plane. That's what you're going to do. Now, you're going to do four things here. You're going to write equations for horizontal and vertical lines. You're going to write equations for parallel lines. You're going to learn to do this thing called restricting the domain and range of each line. And that's going to control and allow you to only show the parts of the line that you want so that your lines don't go forever in every direction. Okay, it's really critical. And it's also going to introduce a new topic that we're going to cover a little bit later in class called domain and range. You're going to get a preview of it here. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to change the line type to create the 3D effect. You're going to change the color and the look, the appearance of these lines so that you can really create this three-dimensional looking box. Let's get to it. So here's what it is going to look like, okay? It took me 12 equations to create this three-dimensional box. Here's a picture of the first four equations. There's going to be a lot more, right? There's going to be 8 more. But you should recognize y equals 0, y equals x plus 2, y equals x, y equals 4. Those are just equations of lines, okay? And then I'm going to teach you what these little brackets are here, right? These little brackets that are next to the equations. That's where you're going to do what I call restricting, okay? But this y equals 0, y equals x plus 2, y equals x, y equals 4. You should recognize those just as the equations of lines. Let's move on. Now, the first activity that you guys are going to do is create a vertical line where x equals 4. And you're going to restrict the range of the graph to y less than 5 greater than 0. So let me explain to you what that means. So you can see right here, and you should recognize that x equals 4 is the equation of a vertical line. So this red line is represented by the equation x equals 4, right? X equals 4, so you draw a line going straight up. And it's got every possible y value in the universe. It's infinite, right? Y equals 6, 8, 10, 12, 12.1.05556, whatever, okay? The y values are infinite at x equals 4. So this is just the equation of the red line, a vertical equation. Now, these brackets are what you're going to do to restrict the appearance of the line, okay? And what I mean by that is, if we're going to make a box, you don't want lines that go on forever in every direction, right? Like this. If the lines go on forever, doesn't look like anything, right? It's just a bunch of lines. That's no fun. You want to actually control the lines so they only show up in certain ranges. And in this case, we only want our line to show up where y is less than 5. So you read this as y less than 5. So we don't want to see the red line above here. So we want to get rid of this red line. And we also want it where y is greater than 0, okay? And usually you're used to seeing y greater than 0 like this, okay? But if you see it reversed, it's the same thing. You could read this as 0 less than y. 0 less than y is the same as y greater than 0. And anytime you see an inequality where the open side of the inequality is facing the y, you can just flip it around and say y is greater than 0, right? The greater than sign of the inequality is the open side, okay? So y greater than 0 means everything above the 0 here, and so you don't want to see anything underneath it. And y less than 5, here is 5. So we don't want to see anything above 5. We only want to see the red line below 5 and above the 0. So when we say we're going to restrict the range of the graph, that's what I mean. We only want to see this red line between 0 and 5, and we don't want to see what's above and what's below. The way that we do that, clear all of these, is to write this inequality into the brackets. Oops. So we want bracket 0 less than y less than 5, close bracket. And you can see what happened. The top and the bottom of my red line disappeared, and only the portion of the red line between 0 and 5 are being graphed. Okay, now, so that's a 5. Just want to make sure you can see. All right, so this little quick squiggly bracket right next to the equation, that's how you control it. On your keyboard, this is Shift. You have to click the Shift key and you look for the brackets. So Shift bracket will give you the curly brackets. And it's usually right above the Return or Enter key. So look on the right side of your keyboard. Now, whenever we restrict, right, and the word restrict means control or set limits. Whenever we're controlling something on the y-axis, we call that the range. The range are your y values. Okay, so anytime we control or set limits on the y values of an equation, we're going to use the word range. So we just restricted the range. We're saying anywhere where y is greater than 0 or less than 5. And we've controlled the range, and we are only showing a line between 0 and 5 on the y-axis. And so we're not seeing anything above, not seeing anything below. Okay? That's your first activity. You're going to do this, and I just explained it to you, what all the words mean. But you're doing this so that you're only showing the part of the line that you want. Your next activity is to control and restrict the domain. And the domain is when you're dealing with the x values. So there's a lot here. On this slide, I'm asking you to do actually a few things. So there's a picture in the middle of this graph. There's a lot going on. So let's break this down step by step. First, it says create a horizontal line at y equals 5. So that's the first thing we're going to do. You're going to put your cursor here in row 4, and you're going to create a horizontal line at y equals 5. So it should look like this. Put my cursor in there, y equals 5. And now you can see that there is this red line going across the stream. I'm going to move this guy so it's out of the way. Okay, so I have a red line at y equals 5. So this is 4, this right here is 5. This is the y-axis. And so we have y equals 5. We've got a red line, okay? So that's step 1. Create a horizontal line at y equals 5. Step 2, and I'll do this in red, is to restrict it to the domain where x is greater than 2 and x is less than 6. Okay, so this is step 2. Creating a horizontal line at y equals 5, that's step 1. And all of these directions are repeated right here. So now we're going to work on step 2. So step 2 means you're going to use these brackets, the curly brackets, which are right. Look for your enter key and look right above it. And you're going to hit shift. You're going to click one of these brackets, right? That's how you get the curly brackets. The curly brackets are different than these straight brackets, okay? So you're going to put your curly brackets in here right next to y equals 5. And you're going to put in this inequality where 2 is less than x, or x is greater than 2, and x is less than 6. Okay? And what that says is you're going to take this line, y equals 5, and you only want to show this red line where x is greater than 2 and where x is less than 6. So here are your boundaries on your x-axis, okay? The 2 and the 6. So here's step 2. Put in my curly brackets, look above the enter key, shift, curly bracket, 2 less than x, or x greater than 2, less than 6, close those brackets, and look what happened. The far right and the left of my line disappear, and I'm left with just a line that shows up between 2 and 6 on the x-axis. So now we have restricted the domain to x greater than 2, x less than 6, right? We got rid of everything on the sides. Now, just as a point of, to introduce some new vocabulary, on the previous screen, what you did is you restricted the y values, and that was called the range. When you restrict the y value, that's called the range. Here, we're restricting the x values, and we call that the domain. Okay? So x values are the domain, y values are the range. That's why you see me writing it here saying restricted to the domain 2 less than x less than 6. Okay? Domain equals x, range equals y values. So now we've done steps 1 and 2. Now you're going to move on and do step 3, which is to make this line a dotted line. That's step 3. Make it a dotted line. Step 3. Now for step 3, I've got a picture here to show you how to do it. And I've also got more directions. So to make something a dotted line, what you do is select the row you want to change. In that case, I'm going to select row 4, right? Because row 4 is where I have my equation of the line, y equals 5, restricted to the domain 2 less than x less than 6. And then it says, click the wheel icon and click the circle on the left. Okay, so now I got to find the wheel icon. It's right up here. Here is your wheel icon. Right up there. This is the wheel. Erase all this stuff around it so you guys can see it clearly. We're working on step 3. There's my wheel at the top. So you're going to click the wheel icon, boom. And now you can see that things changed. You go back down here, you see this little table, you've got this little duplicate, got the X. And now you're going to click on the circle on the left, which is this red circle. And now you get this menu. And this menu, whoops, click the wheel, click the circle. So wheel and circle right there. Now it says make it a dotted line. So I have 3 choices here. This is solid line. This is dashed line, and this is dotted line. So I'm going to pick the dotted line, which is the 3rd choice right there. So you're going to pick dotted line right here. That's the 3rd choice. And look what happens. My red line just turned into a dotted line. Woohoo! Now you can do all kinds of things. You can change the color. Look, I made a blue dotted line. I made a green dotted line. I made an orange dotted line. I made a purple dotted line. I made a black line. You can change the weight of the line. So look, my line is getting super thick. Look how big my dots are. I change this to a 12 and change it to a 1.5. And it gets really small, right? So you can play with that however you want. And this little picture just is a reminder of how to get to a dotted line, how to change the weight of the dotted line, and then obviously all the colors you want to play with. So you just play with that and have fun, okay? Play with it and have fun. But we did 3 things on this slide, so take your time and play with it and do all 3 things. Make your line y equals 5, restrict it to the domain so it only shows up between the 2 and the 6 on the x-axis, and then click the wheel, and then click the wheel, and then click the little dot, pull up this menu and play with that menu so you can change the appearance of what your line looks like. And remember, I'm making you do this dotted line so that you can get that 3D effect going. Okay, get that 3D effect. All right, so those are all the steps. You know, when you're done with all that, playing around with it, then you actually get to the fun part, which is creating a 3D box. Okay, so this 3D box is a little different than the one that I showed you in the picture in the first slide. But what you want to do is create a rectangular box with a width of 5 units. Okay, so that means to get this right, you've got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. Okay, so that's a width of 5. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're gonna have a line here. You're gonna have a line going across the top. You're gonna have a line going over here that is 5 units. Okay, so that's a width of 5. And then you need to have a height of 3 units. So 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. That is a height of 3. You got to connect. You need to connect your box, the lines of your box, and you've got to draw the dotted lines for the 3D effect. going like that. Okay, so that is what you're trying to create. You're using linear equations to draw this box, and you're going to change the appearance of the lines in the back. So 3 of your lines, you have to change them to dotted lines so that you can create the 3D effect. That is your mission, that is your goal. Now, I want you to change. You don't have to make a red and green box. I want you to make this box as colorful as you want it to be. So pick your own colors for these lines. That's your mission, that's your goal. Now, how are you going to do it? So look, I've given you 2 equations to start. Y equals x plus 2, restricted to the domain of 2 and 6. Y equals 2, restricted to the range of 1 and 4. So, and I'll just change these colors so I can make it really obvious. So click the edit wheel, click this. I'm going to make this blue. So this is x equals 2, and then I restricted it from 1. I'll do this in blue since it's the blue line. So this is the line x equals 2. Whoa. My computer's getting super slow. So give me a second. All right. So this line, x equals 2. That's this, restricted to the range, y greater than 1, less than 4. So here is 4 on your y-axis, here is 1, right? And so I'm only showing the line between 1 and 4. If I didn't have this restriction on, if I didn't have these brackets, that line would go on forever in both directions. And so I use the brackets, I put that inequality in there, and it restricts my line to just between 1 and 4. Y equals x plus 2. I'm going to use red. That's this line right here. Whoops. Get that centered. This equation is y equals x plus 2. Now, if I got rid of the domain restriction, right, because domain equals the x values, you'll see a line that goes on forever, right? It has a y-intercept of 2. That's my y-intercept. It's got a y-intercept of 2, and it's got a slope of 1, okay? So little m is my slope. It's a slope of 1. If you just see that x by itself, like y equals x, that's a slope of 1 because x is the same as 1x, right? 1x. So your slope is 1. And 1 is the same as 1 over 1. So that means I go right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1. Okay? The slope is the measure of how steep a line is, which is how vertical it is for every unit of horizontal. So it goes 1 unit vertical for every 1 unit to the right horizontally. That's your slope. So there's your line. This is y equals x plus 2. And if I put my restriction back in place, and this is a domain restriction, oops, I only want to see this line between the x values of 2 and 6. So if you look down here on my x-axis, here's the 2, here's the 6. I got rid of everything, all the parts of the line. You can't see it because I only want to see the lines between 2 and 6 right here. This is my domain restriction. that you are going to use those curly Q brackets to do. So what do you need to do now? You need to go in to each one of these rows, starting in row 4, and you need to start adding equations to fill in the rest of your box, right? Like I need a line, for instance. I'm going to use green. I need a horizontal line that is 5 units long, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where y equals 4. So one of my lines is definitely going to be y equals 4. And then I got to figure out how I'm going to restrict it. So I want to do a restriction of the x values. I'm probably just going to do the same thing. I want it to show up between the values, x values of 2 and 6. So I am going to have to figure out what I'm going to put in these curly Q brackets. That's one line. And I'll give you another hint. The line that you want to create, and I'm going to use purple here. You're going to want to create a line that's this purple line. You're going to need to do that. That line is parallel to y equals 2x plus 2. Okay, that line is parallel. And a parallel line has the same slope. Okay, so you want to be parallel to y, same distance between these two lines, you remember that? Equidistant. So you need to create a line that is parallel to the red line, which is y equals x plus 2. So your parallel line is going to be y equals x plus something. You've got to find a y-intercept that will make this line up exactly where you need it to go. You're going to have to create another parallel line behind it. You're going to have to create another parallel line here. So there's 3 more parallel lines you need to create. All right. You guys, that was 30 minutes. That was pretty intense of a lot of just like direct instruction. If you watch this entire video, God bless you. Love you. I got to try and keep my video shorter. I don't know how to do that, but I will. Love you guys. Enjoy the challenge.